Hey guys, Carlos Cucalon here. Let's talk about what are the steps that we need to follow anytime that we're creating a new website or application for a client or even for ourselves. Stay tuned. So why should we have a strategy for when we're developing or designing a website? As UI UX designers, sometimes our main focus is to be creative, which is great. Like I said in my previous video, I don't think we should stop that. However, we need to have a plan on how we're going to take that creativity and turn it into a product that will benefit our clients. So what we need to do is break it down into very logical and very much something that we can follow, right? So let's talk about the 3-step approach that you can find it on this book called Above the Fold. This is a great book. I will have it as a resource on the description below for you to buy it. It's a little bit dated with some of the information that it has in there, but I think the information still carries on, and it has some really good information in regards of what it takes to design an application. In our case, again, our focus is being UI, UX designer, user interface, user experience designers, and what we should do. So step 1 will be planning. Abraham Lincoln, and I'll butch this quote probably, so if you want to leave the comment below with the correct quote, but he said something along the lines, if you give me 4 to 6 hours to chop down a tree, I will spend 4 hours sharpening my axe. In other words, what we should focus on first is to actually look at and prepare and plan. The planning phase of any project helps to determine the success of that project in the long term, because through the planning phase, you are able to iron out some details as far as what the client wants, what the client needs, right? And what is the outcome? Right? If you were to ask a client when you're designing a website for them and they came to you and said, I need you to design an application or design a website, and you said, sure, Mr. Client, what should your first question be? And to be honest, most UI UX designers don't know what that question is. And the question is, why are we doing this application? Why now? What do you expect of gaining from creating this or updating this? What is the long-term benefit for the company? What would happen if we don't do it? Right? We should also think about, for example, maybe a better question would be, what will be the win? If we were to do this application, what can we consider as a home run? Or better yet, if they don't know how to answer that, well, what would we consider a failure if we actually deliver this application? Some of these questions that are open-ended will help the client answer what their ultimate goal is. In this process of the planning phase, you'll focus on creating stuff like, for example, a creative brief, or for example, something like a SWOT analysis. The creative brief gives you a good detailed information about who the client is, what the project is about, as well as who their clients are, who their target audience is. You may go into after that and create even personas for the people and kind of have a way to visualize the people that you're going to be designing for. The next step would be to maybe create a SWOT analysis. Look at what are the strengths and weaknesses, the opportunities and threats for that company, and then break it down and try to understand how do we take their strengths and weaknesses and put them on our website. How do we take the opportunities and threats and then and be able to take advantage of those things? So for example, the strengths and weaknesses will be things that the company can internally fix. So for example, strengths are things that we're doing really good. Weaknesses will be things that we're doing not so good. So how can we take our tool, like our application, maybe a website or whatever else we're doing? If it's an application, maybe how do we improve systems and procedures that are being placed? Maybe if the procedures and systems are great, then let's go ahead and highlight those and put them in prominence in that application. Maybe it's something that we want to highlight and recognize in our website. If it's strengths, how do we lower those things so that we can improve in our customer service? Now, those are things that are internal to the company. declining. Now we have also opportunities and threats, and the opportunities and threats are things that are outside of our control, such as the economy, maybe a pandemic. Who would have thought, right? Things that are outside of the control that we have. And opportunities are things like, for example, maybe a competitor went down. So how do we take advantage to take and retain and maybe pull back some of the clients that they no longer are able to assist? Or how do we put or place ourselves as the best in our market? All those things are opportunities that we can see. Maybe threats are things that we're looking and seeing in patterns as far as things coming ahead. And maybe we can prepare through the application or through the website on how do we make those steps better, right? How do we go ahead and take those threats and minimize it so that we can still continue doing business? That's a very good thing to consider when you're building a website. Now, in that planning phase, you're also going to consider things like a sitemap. A sitemap is a high level 10,000 bird's eye view of what the website will look like. You'll have your navigation, like for example, your homepage, about us, our company, contact us, maybe products, services, all these things where you can visualize where things are aligned and where we will want that content to fall into. Does that make sense for the business that we are doing this for? In that process, when we're looking at the sitemap, it will also help us understand, for example, what content are we missing? Does it make sense to have, for example, maybe our people under about us, or should it be maybe on something about our community and service? What do we do? And it will help us break down and say, okay, this is what we're trying to achieve. We avoid duplicate pages. And if you're working in a larger team, once you pass on your designs to a developer, unless you are the developer as well, then it will help us clarify what type of pages, how many pages, so that they can even provide a better estimate as far as how long and also how much it will cost to create this application or website. All these things fall into the planning phase. Very, very important. Try to spend time in there. Allot yourself time in there. In my practice, when we have a big business or a big project, usually we allocate several hours to just doing that. Just understanding, so that when we go into develop, we have lowered the cost because we fully understand what is being required from us to design or develop. So that's very, very, very important. Planning phase. Now, the second phase that we need to focus on will be the design portion. When you look into designing your application, you will go back to your creative brief. You will go back to your SWOT analysis. You will go back to the personas that you created. You will go back to the sitemap, and using that information, with the understanding of who the company is or your client is, with the understanding of what their business is, who their target audience is. Once you have a full understanding of who they are, how do they want to be represented, what are their goals, their objectives, with all of that in mind, then you go into designing. At that point, you take their brand if they have one. If not, then that's an opportunity for you to create a brand strategy for them. Then with that in mind, you go in and take these designs, and then you start creating things like, for example, wireframes, flow charts. A wireframe is nothing more than boxes and font text, things that are, it may not even have to be real text in there, but that would help kind of understand where things are going to be placed within the site. It will help you understand how things are going to look and feel on the site. Make sure, looking at, for example, maybe sizing of content. What is first, second, third, fourth most important things, and create a content hierarchy on your website or in the application. Remember, if you did not know this, usually we human beings try to understand what's more important, less important, and less important, so that we can guide through what narrative we're trying to portray on that website. We human beings, and there's a lot of different design laws, quote unquote laws that we're going to talk in the future about, but they help us understand how do we design for humans? How do we design for people to actually use the application and not overwhelm them? When was the last time you read an actual website? Most of us just scan through that content. So what we need to do is we need to take all these laws and all these practices and all this data and merge them together. A wireframe is a good idea to see kind of where content falls in. Also, it will help us understand and see once we actually scan that wireframe, meaning we take in all of our colors, branding, fonts, and then all of our content and images and all the imagery, iconography, everything that we're planning on using on this website. Once we dump it in there and we make it look like it should, then at some point there needs to be an emotion that gets shared with our customers. How do they feel emotionally? What is their gut feeling towards our company? There's a saying that I may not remember what you tell me, but I will remember how you made me feel. We want to create designs that have a response, an emotional response towards what we design. So that's very important. Take our plan, all of the tools that we have created on the first part, and then go back to designing. Now, some of you guys would actually be developers and actually know how to code and actually maybe create the applications. Maybe you take it from the very beginning to the very end. So maybe in this case, you'll have extra steps like actually developing, like actually training and QA, like quality assurance, and making sure that everything is where it's supposed to be, that every interaction that you have designed is in place, and that everything that you are supposed to code is coded, that you haven't missed anything on the wireframes. Now, if you're not part of that and you're just a UI UX designer, then the last portion that you will do is analyzing the data or analyzing the design. Once the design is done, then you go ahead and let it go to the wild. Either you propagate it and let everybody, all their customers receive it. Maybe you do A/B testing where you maybe show a set of their users, maybe one page one way, another page another way, and see what their response is so that you can choose which page is better designed for their target audience so that you can at that point make even more informed decisions. The third part is to analyze the content, analyze the design, analyze that the goals, objectives, and everything that was said in the creative brief all the way back to the planning session is actually being delivered. Hopefully your objectives and hopefully your goals are things that can be measured. For example, if I were to talk to a design or if I were to go to a designer for them to design something for me, and they were to tell me we can help you achieve more subscribers on your website, then I don't know if I will take them seriously. The reason why is because of the word more. How do you define more? More can be one more. More can be two more. What if they tell me we can increase your subscribers by 16%? That sounds better. But how long will that take? Maybe it takes me 30 years for 16% to increase. How about we give them something more detailed, something that is measurable? How about we say something along the lines of maybe 16% is a good measurement, right? But how about we give them an estimate of time, maybe 6 months? So it should sound something along the lines of, let's go ahead and our design and with our research and what we're doing may be able to help you increase your subscription rate up to 16% in the next 6 months. That's something that we can finally understand, something that we can measure. We have a goal time frame in which this design should work. And as we're going through that process, then we can start and continue analyzing that process to make sure that we're able to hit that goal. If not, then again, in this analyzing process, then we can see, okay, these are the things that are maybe we're missing. What are some strategies that we can do to implement so that we can hit this goal, or wait till the term is complete for whatever promise we had made and then go back to the drawing board and start planning again. Very, very important that we consider these 3 phases as we're designing anything from an application to a website, whatever it may be, because it would help us have something that is concrete and something that is that it can be measured, right? As a business owner, you have this thing called ROI, which stands for return on investment. Meaning, if I were to pay a designer to design something for me, there needs to be a return in the money that I invested. And I don't expect a one-to-one return, right? Like, for example, if I were to invest $100,000, then I don't expect just $100,000. I expect something like $1 million in my application, because I expect it to return more than what I paid for it. By using what we're talking about here, you're planning, designing, and analyzing, it will help you be able to hit and be able to have information as you're talking with your client to make sure that you are able to hit every single one of these goals and objectives. It's very important that as a designer, you protect yourself and you protect your client when you have something in writing saying, this is the reason why we created it. Based on the goals and objectives that we have discovered, we are planning on doing this for this specific reason in this time frame. And with that, you'll be able to make your customers happy and help them understand that you are on their side, that you're there to help them, and you see yourself as part of their business. Again, this is a really great book. It's going to be in the description below. I'm getting no money on this. This is the book that I used to teach at the university. So again, I use it for my students. I recommend it to other designer friends of mine. And I've bought several copies and gifted some of them as well, because I feel that it's a really tremendous book to read, and it has some good information in there, especially if you're starting out. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the content that we talked about any of the, maybe you would like for us to expand a little bit more about creative briefs, what are creative briefs and how to use them, maybe a SWOT analysis, things like that, just let us know. Leave it in the comment below, and depending on how much time we have and what we can do, then should be able to create those for you and post them on YouTube so you can see them. But hopefully these will help you as you're going through the process of creating or redesigning a website or an application, to consider all the different things and how they all flow together. Again, remember, 3-step approach: plan, design, and analyze. See you later. Bye.